I got a request on the comments to look at a Gwendolyn Brooks poem that's actually just a couple poems later than the sonnet ballad in the collection Annie Allen, which is this sort of mid-century Pulitzer Prize winning collection of poetry by Gwendolyn Brooks. Gwendolyn Brooks, as we've talked about before, is a Chicago poet. She's one of the major poets of the mid-century, one of the major poets who comes of age and begins publishing poetry in the late 40s and early 50s that really defines sort of the immediately post-war voice in American poetry. And the poem I want to look at briefly today is part 2 of a series of poems called The Womanhood, which is in Annie Allen. Life for my child is simple and is good. He knows his wish. Yes, but that is not all, because I know mine too. We both want the joy of undeep and unabiding things, like kicking over a chair or throwing blocks out of a window or tipping over an icebox pan or snatching down curtains or fingering an electric outlet or a journey or a friend or an illegal kiss. No, there is more to it than that. It is that he has never been afraid. Rather, he reaches out and lo, the chair falls with a beautiful crash, and the blocks fall down on the people's heads, and the water comes slooshing sloppily out across the floor, and so forth. Not that success for him is sure infallible, but never has he been afraid to reach. His lesions are legion, but reaching is his rule. So this is not a sonnet, and yet it's not much longer than a sonnet. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 lines. So we could see it as sort of a sonnet with an extra 3 lines. But it's not rhymed like a sonnet, and its lines are not all the same length. So I think treating it as a 17-line free verse poem is a good thing. Now, this poem is in the context of the womanhood, which is spoken in the voice of a mother. And as we see early on in Annie Allen, the collection, there's sort of these perspectives of women during the 40s, women whose either lovers or husbands or brothers or maybe all three have gone off to World War I, who are trying to raise children. These are Black voices. These are voices of women who are not the most wealthy, who are women who are not, these aren't sort of the privileged aristocratic voices. These are kind of the domestic middle to lower class voices. And so this is a poem meditating on the child. Life for my child is simple and is good. He knows his wish. I really like that. He knows his wish. It's a whole sentence that only takes up the half of the second line. He knows his wish. Yes, but that is not all, because I know mine too. So there's this sort of camaraderie of wish, and then we get a section where we see, okay, what is the thing that both mother and child wish for? It's interesting also, just real quick, that the child is a boy. There's these gender contrasts, as we saw in the sonnet ballad, between the woman and the man, and then Death, who is herself a woman, a rival lover of the man. Here we have the male child and the woman who's both thinking about her child's perspective, but also trying to see a male perspective. We both want joy of undeep and unabiding things. That's great. Not, we want the joy of deep and abiding things. Maybe we'd expect this in a more inspirational poem. She's like, no, we want the joy of the undeep and the unabiding. And she gives us this fantastic litany of things that is so childlike. Kicking over a chair, throwing blocks out of a window, tipping over an icebox pan. I love that image because, tipping over a chair or throwing blocks, you can kind of hear that a little bit, but I think the sonic implications of the icebox pan is especially clattering and clanking and loud, and, the skittering of ice. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to imagine. Snatching down curtains, fingering an electric outlet. Snatching down curtains is sort of annoying and maybe a little destructive. Fingering an electric outlet, all of a sudden we're moving to flirting with real harm and maybe even death. Or a journey, or a friend, or an illegal kiss. It's interesting, journey and friend seem neutral. Illegal kissed is romantic, but it's also, no, it's not just any kiss. It's especially not an allowed kiss. It's an illegal kiss. And I think given the wartime imagery, this sort of civil rights or early civil rights era, thinking back to the Jim Crow South, thinking about, the totalitarian governments overseas in the late 40s, early 50s, that illegal has a lot of resonance within within world history and American history in the mid-century. No, there is more to it than that. Okay, so that's what the wish is, but there's more than just that. And this "no, there's more to it than that" is at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th line. So this is kind of a volta. Once again, this isn't a sonnet, and yet it has a turn around the same place where a sonnet would have a turn. It is that he has never been afraid. Rather, he reaches out, and lo, the chair falls with a beautiful crash, and the blocks fall down on people's heads. Oh no, this isn't just a harmless accident. People could get hurt from what he's doing. And the water comes slooshing sloppily out across the floor, and so forth. Great, and so forth. It's like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. There's this ability that Gwendolyn Brooks has that I really love to give us that really dense sonic slooshing sloppily across the floor, and then just sort of a hand waving, and so forth. All of a sudden, the sonic density is done. Not that success for him is sure infallible, but never has he been afraid to reach. His lesions are legion, but reaching is his rule. So he has been hurt by his sort of desire for like chaos and messing things up, and maybe even being a little destructive and harmful. His lesions are legion, but reaching is his rule. I like that, because reaching is his rule. If it was out of context, we would say, oh, maybe he's striving. No, the reaching is the reaching to knock another thing over. And yet the knocking another thing over and the striving are connected. And I think there's this question all throughout, especially Annie Allen, of, what are the things that women and men do, that children do, that are going to be good for them, are going to lead to flourishing? And then what are the things that we do that are self-destructive or indulgent for us? What will be the rule of our lives? And what will rule our lives? I think that rule word is really significant at the end there. So this is a curious poem. It's not seen as one of the major poems in this collection. The Aeneid and Sonnet Ballad are usually the two that are focused on a lot, but there are a few others, a couple really great sonnets other than the Sonnet Ballad. But I hope this is, maybe if you liked our previous Gwendolyn Brooks video, this has given you a taste for some other things that are going on in Annie Allen. I should recommend, if you can get a hold of this collection of Gwendolyn Brooks called Blacks, this has most of Gwendolyn Brooks's published poetry in it. It doesn't have every collection, but it's a good survey from her poetry of the late 40s all the way up in through the poetry of the late 20th century. She lived into the 21st century just a little bit, and there's some great poems in here from like the 80s and 90s. So Blacks by Gwendolyn Brooks is worth checking out. Third World Press Foundation puts it out. So they're a smaller press, but they hold the rights to her main major works. There's a Library of America Essential Gwendolyn Brooks collection, which is good, but it's maybe a third of this. This is really the one to check out. This also has her novella in it. That is worth reading as well. So thanks for hanging out with Gwendolyn Brooks. We'll be back with some late 20th century British poetry, sonnets in particular, next time.